The days after pulling out of the wartime grain deal and renewing global fears over food insecurity, Moscow has warned that in the absence of Russian security guarantees, shipping grain out of Ukrainian ports could of course be very risky. The Kremlin claims that Ukraine is in fact using the Black Sea waters for military activities. Russia has further said that ships sailing through the Black Sea ports will be seen as potential military targets, and the flag countries of such ships will be considered as parties to the Ukrainian conflict. Now, the announcement has reflected Russian President Vladimir Putin's fury that the United Nations brokered Black Sea grain deal initiative had worked against Russia, and it came hours after the blast seriously damaged the Kerch Bridge, linking the mainland to the strategic Crimean Peninsula. In a counter-move, Ukraine now says that ships sailing towards Russia-controlled ports in Black Sea will be deemed as carrying military cargo. Now, Kyiv has also prohibited navigation on the northeastern part of the Black Sea, and the deal brokered by the United Nations in Turkey was signed by Russia and Ukraine last July to ensure that the Ukrainian ships carrying grain could in fact transport food grain from its Black Sea ports of Yuzhny, Odessa and Kornomorsk to the Bosphorus without being attacked. With it had come a separate agreement to facilitate the shipments of the Russian food and fertilizer, but Moscow has long complained that parts of the deal relating to these exports have not been implemented.
I would like to emphasize that we are not against the deal itself, especially considering its significance for the global food market for many countries of the world. And of course, we will consider the possibility of returning to it, but only on one condition: if without exception, previously agreed principles for Russia's participation in this deal are fully taken into account and, most importantly, implemented.
Now remember, the Black Sea is heavily mined by both Ukrainian and Russian forces. Reacting to the announcement by Russia, the United States has said that Moscow is planning to attack civilian ships and then put the blame on Ukraine. It has also cited a newly declassified intelligence report as the basis of its allegation. Now, as Russia threatens to target any ship going through the Black Sea ports, Ukraine has said that it is setting up a temporary shipping route to try and continue its grain exports. Kyiv has said that the grains will be exported through the Black Sea via the Romanian territorial waters, and according to reports, the route will of course pass through the exclusive maritime economic zone. Since quitting the deal, Moscow has rained missiles in Ukraine's two biggest port cities, Odessa and Kyiv. The strikes appear to be the worst yet, with local authorities in Kyiv reporting at least about 19 people being wounded. And as per the White House, the attacks which have been taking place in the city of Odessa can soon expand to the civilian ships on the Black Sea. Moscow has said that Ukraine has been targeting military infrastructure in the city, even as both Kyiv and Washington claim that strikes by Russia had destroyed agricultural infrastructure and 60,000 tons of grain which were meant to be exported. And to give us more perspective on this, we are being joined at this moment by Mr. John Irath from Washington, D.C. Mr. Irath is a senior policy director for Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. Mr. Irath, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, this, of course, is the big question. Russia has pulled out of the Black Sea grain deal. It has said that this path is being used by Ukraine to smuggle in weapons. Is there any basis to this allegation that's been leveled by Russia?
I think it's difficult to understand exactly what the Russians mean. Clearly, the primary focus is on grain shipments, and the Ukrainian ports are being able to export grain that is needed to feed people around the world, but is also an important part of the Ukrainian economy. So I think this announcement from Moscow should be taken in that context, that it's part of economic warfare against Ukraine.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, with this passage being completely, blocked by the Russians, where they've said that any ship traveling through the Black Sea and heading towards the Ukrainian ports will be a legitimate target. If this is how the Russians, of course, create the circumstances to be, how badly do you think this will impact the Ukrainian economy to carry forth with this war?
It remains to be seen exactly what Russia is going to do about this. They have reportedly hit some of the economic targets in and around the major Ukrainian ports to restrict exports. Russia has not thus far targeted any of the ships that are carrying the grain. but in a sense, they don't have to. Shipping routes are determined largely by insurance purposes. And if shipping companies are not able to obtain insurance to move their cargoes in and out of Ukraine, then they won't go. So that would have the same effect of sinking a ship without actually having to commit an act of violence.
Mr. Irath, my final question to you is, what can the Western nations now do? The West has imposed sanction after sanctions on Russia, and now the Russians have said that they cannot guarantee the safety of the ships that, of course, travel to these Ukrainian ports. So is there anything that the Western world can actually do? Because a lot of the global food security depends on the grains that come out of Ukraine and Russia. So how does the West respond to this?
That's a very good question, and it's the right thing to be asking because, as you know, food security is a very important element of this conflict, and especially as the measures announced by Russia could have the effect of driving up food prices for some of the people who need access to inexpensive food supplies the most. So what can the West do? It's largely things that are already being done. Better maritime security in the Black Sea region, a firm stand against aggression against food supplies, and perhaps it's time to finally impose some economic sanctions that mean something.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Irath, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
You're welcome.